Bitch!
Welcome to the Unimaginary Friendcast. This is Livestream episode number 272. This is a conversation with your best friends, and we are those best friends.
I am Nathan Von Edmondson.
I'm Erin Marie, Betty Davis Jr. Von Edmondson. I should say my full name now, right?
Oh, I think you should. We're going to have to add that to the Vicron or whatever it's called. And I'm davidmonster.com.
And for anyone just listening and not live streaming, we have a 98 Degrees shirt on and a New Kids on the Block poster behind David. I'm sure that is happening for some reason. He's shrugging.
Yeah, for every reason. For every reason.
Moving on. So today we're going to be welcoming a multi-talented special guest to help us celebrate Pride Month. She's a writer, actress, business owner, working in Hollywood. She also happens to be a trans woman, and we're very excited to chat with her. But first.
Oh no. God. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh. Breaking news.
Next, should I go first?
Go ahead.
I was subjected to my first Father's Day yesterday.
Subjected?
Subjected. And I have to tell you how it went. So I woke up and breakfast was served to me by my daughter. Hard-boiled eggs. Actually, they weren't hard-boiled. They were hard-boiled, but they were
deviled.
Deviled eggs for breakfast with yogurt and peanut butter and granola and a smoothie. My daughter did all of this herself. She's 3.5 months old. It's amazing. And then she went to the store and bought me a coffee and brought that back. I had an amazing lunch. Pierogies, that's right. We had pierogies, a mid-afternoon snack, and then dinner at a Tibetan restaurant. Like, I'm just spoiled to all shit.
And she even got us a bottle of wine.
Yeah, she got us a bottle of wine. She's 3.5 months old, and this is how she's starting off. She's got a lot to live up to.
They don't card in Philadelphia?
I guess not.
I'm surprised you're not wearing your new gifts.
Oh my goodness, why don't I have them on? I might have to go put those on. There's too much going on when you have a 3.5-month-old.
Maybe that will be a surprise moment in the later part of this podcast. But happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you. Yeah, it was lovely. It was really lovely.
He earned it. This guy is seriously number one dad.
Really?
Well, every father gets told that, I'm sure.
No, it's not true. I told him that yesterday. It's not true. Everyone says it, but it's not true. It's true when I say it.
Okay, yeah.
I can tell you a father that was never told they were number one dad.
There you go. So not everybody.
There you go. No, it was really lovely. It was a beautiful day. I'm very blessed.
Aw, and we have another one.
We have Father's Day Nathan from a lovely listener. David, do you want to go next or should I?
You should go next because I have to read you two bitches.
Okay. My news is that last week we took a long 5.5-hour trek across Pennsylvania, which is a very long state, to the magical land of Pittsburgh, where we have family, and that family is a couple that happened to have a baby 2 weeks after we had a baby. So we had those two babies meet for the first time in their lives, and it was just a joyous, fun weekend of putting babies in matching outfits and making them do stuff together, even though they're completely oblivious to anything that's happening in the world.
So Velour von Edmondson met her identical twin cousin, Velveteen von Edmondson. Am I correct?
You are correct.
Correct.
Yeah, that's all I have to say. It was really special, actually. They're both girls. They're going to be growing up together. Hopefully.
Did they just happen to have matching outfits, or did they go out and get them knowing that?
Oh no, we got them with the intention of taking ridiculous photographs.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. All right, awesome.
David.
All right. So a listener brought up to me recently that they were listening to an old podcast of ours, and someone, I'm not going to say who on the show, said in a very vitriolic, pointed manner, said, all teachers should die. No, sorry, all teachers should be killed.
Wait,
and
what?
all teachers should be killed. Someone on one of the three of us said it, and I'm not going to say who. because
Okay.
I think we all know.
Which
But I just think it was about economics or politics or something. I don't know. It was one of our old podcasts.
Sure.
I just think it's very irresponsible of the two of you to allow such language.
I'm so confused. I don't know what episode it was or who said it or in what context. So without one of those three things,
Whomever said it, it was our fault that it was said.
okay, I'm gathering
I
that.
take full responsibility, and I apologize to all teachers and all murderers everywhere.
Thank you, Nathan. That's all we need. Now we can move on. Now we're not canceled. We're uncanceled. Thank you, Nathan.
I beg for forgiveness.
I have a feeling that it might be David, but
No!
I think we should move on.
I've taken responsibility.
All right.
But my big news is that Dr. Anna Banana Von Denotro said that my aesthetic is awesome.
David,
so thank you.
We have such a basic podcast. We got the straight white male to apologize. Isn't that like so?
Well, it's Pride Month. He should be apologizing.
The only anything I say this podcast will be me apologizing.
Perfect.
Every word. I'm sorry.
And I just want to point out that our guru Nancy Queen von Edmondson says that she loves that her little identical twin grandchildren are called Velour and Velveteen von Edmondson.
Well, I'm glad that she approves of these make-believe names. Hooligan Mama, she has seen some of these photos, I think, so she's got the inside scoop. But anyway, shall we move on to the Gold Star?
Gold Star, Gold Star, Gold Star.
Gold Star goes to, when the graphic ends, I'll announce it. Carl Nassib, who is a defensive lineman for the Raiders. So he is the first NFL player to come out while actually being a player, so not after the fact.
Whilst playing. And his name is deceiving because he looks like super all-American blonde white boy.
Yeah, David had a huge boner when he saw him for the first time.
That is so fucked up, and that is so homophobic, Aaron.
David knocked his New Kids on the Block poster off the wall.
That is so wrong. No, Carl Nassib is the first attractive man to ever come out of the closet because no.
David, tell me that you weren't hot and bothered when you saw his photograph.
Well, it was just so shocking because they're usually such I don't even want to say.
All
Sorry,
right.
go ahead.
I'm excited to get into this episode. I think our special guest is in the waiting room. Let's let her in.
Should we bring her in? Ladies and gentlemen, Gabriella Rafiele.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Happy Pride.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. You should be. He's just straight white male just apologizing for everything that has ever happened.
It's going to be an apology because
he behaves very... Do you accept
so much to me. Yes. Thank you. I feel like my traumas are gone.
Oh, nice. That's awesome, Nathan. All right, so I'm going to give her the introduction she deserves. Normally, we don't allow such long introductions, but because she's special and beautiful and wonderful, and you'll see, Gabriella Rafiele is a Salvadorian-American writer, actress, and business owner living in Hollywood, California. She is best known for writing her feature film, From Dark Eyes to Winter's Eternity, which is set to be released this year. She also appeared in QB's The Stranger as Bambi and has worked on a number of LGBTQIA, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Themed theater plays in California and Texas. She has also recently opened a metaphysical new age retail shop, Starlight Intuitive.com, which is an online and in-person Woodland Hills, California shop where she hopes to inspire people to open up their creativity and live a heart-centered life.
Yay!
Hey, welcome, Gabriella Rafiele.
Thank you.
That is one hell of a bio.
I know, huh? She's been doing it. She's been turned into it out. All right, so this is what we have. We have some facts and then we have questions. So what we're gonna do is the first thing I want to say is we want to get to a point where we're not describing people, about their attributes, just people. But I do want to say that right now it's important because representation is very important right now because visibility helps to promote a more welcoming, a more welcoming environment. So we want to applaud you and we want to showcase you however you want to be represented because life ain't easy, bitch. Life ain't easy.
No, and you know what? Thank you so much because I do believe representation matters, but also the spaces, like your space, you having me on the show is already something amazing. I think the space is just as important.
Oh, thank you. Wow, she took the compliment and turned it around on us. Thank you so much. You don't get a lot of compliments.
And for that, I would like to ask for your forgiveness. And
thank you.
All right, we're gonna hit everybody with a couple of facts right out of the gate. Just a couple of facts, just to get kind of centered. Because in this environment where we have seen, and I never thought the Republicans or the conservatives would ramp up so hard. Like I thought like they would kind of come around but they've ramped up and there's a huge anti-LGBT thing going on out there. And a lot of things they say are like, why are they coming out now? Or like, where did they come from? Like who created them? And I just want to hit people with a bunch of facts because there are references to transgendered people as far back as history, the written history. And as far back as 7000 BC, there are references to kings, pharaohs, priests, on every continent of this planet, in Asia, in Greece, and everywhere, that there are references to transgender people. And the thing that was so interesting to me is they've lived openly, and it wasn't a big deal. Like there have been minor persecutions here and there. No, I shouldn't say minor. There have been persecutions here and there, just as everyone's been persecuted. But the biggest persecution there's an entity that occurred. There's an entity that developed that tried to erase transgenderism from the planet. And does anybody want to make a guess as to what that entity is?
Republicans.
2,000 years ago, Republicans made it their goal. No, the Abrahamic religions, Christianity and Muslimism most directly tried to wipe out. They've tried to erase from history these facts that have happened. But things are happening now, so they didn't succeed. And then there's just two facts I want to give that bring us up till now, because we've heard of so many that have happened recently. But in 1952, American Christine Jorgensen became the first worldwide publicly known person to get reassignment surgery. Had you two heard about her, Nathan and Aaron?
Yeah, there was a lovely film that you'll have to forgive me because I forget the name of it, but it's an excellent film.
Yeah, it was Eddie Redmayne.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
It's a great movie. I don't
it was really good.
remember the name as well.
So
I don't remember either.
So it was in 1952, and people think, like, I don't know, it's just so funny to think that was almost 70 years ago, and it kind of came out, and then it kind of went back in. It rides this wave, but I think we're at the highest point it's ever been at. And in 1972, Sweden became the first country to allow people to legally change their sex. So that was 50 years ago. So it's funny because there were spurts, and then now we come up to Gabriella Rafiele.
And then there was me.
And now there was you. And now we're going to ask you questions that people need to know, things that are topical right now. The first being, a lot of people don't seem to understand the difference between sex and gender identity.
Okay.
Do you get asked that a lot, or do you get that confusion posed to you?
A lot of people try to use that in their argument against why they don't believe in transgenderism, but I'm like, it's not something you believe in. It's just what it is. But so a lot of people get it confused because sex is you're born male or female. You know, your gender identity varies. So you could be a male, but you identify as a woman or as a feminine person or non-binary or any of the other genders. So that's different. So you can't really change your sex. I mean, I can't be born again, you know, and my body can't be female. It never can be. Um, but my gender identity in my head, because gender's in your head. So gender identity in my head is I've always been a woman in my head. So that's the difference. And a lot of people use it interchangeably, but it's actually, there's a big difference.
Yeah, I never understood why anybody cared. I mean, I do understand now that a lot of it comes from religion and being taught to not like it. But living in LA, living in Hollywood, do you feel yourself discriminated against, or do you feel any of the hatred on a day-to-day basis?
You know, I think in Los Angeles, especially where I live now in Hollywood, no. But there's still like that, I don't know, somebody will look at you for too long and then you're kind of wondering in your head, like, what are they looking at? You know, or are they trying to figure me out? But it could not be that. It could just be in my head. So that goes along with the gender dysphoria, which a lot of people, you know, have a hard time kind of controlling or managing it. But I have had some instances where I've been discriminated against because of it.
Really? Can you tell us of one? Or
Yeah, there was one when I started, actually, this was like early in my transition. I was at work and this person didn't want to be served by me because I was transgender. You know, he was like, I didn't know. I just didn't know. And so we're like, okay, whatever. So that happened. And the other one, honestly, I don't remember really. Kind of put it out in the back of my head. I know there was some people, especially like in the South, but not even in the South, like even here in LA, they will kind of like misgender you on purpose just to, I guess, try to get a rise out of you or something. So I've had that happen to me before where I can tell, you know, they're doing it on purpose. And it's just something you have to learn to manage it, I guess, kind of ignore it. Because if I worried about that the whole time, I would just be, I'd be paralyzed.
Yeah.
I was trying to you know, when we talked about, or David mentioned that this persecution kind of started when religions formed, and I was trying to think of like, what's the goal? Like, why be anti-trans, you know, anything that's not just the traditional male-female traditional role relationship? And is it just like procreation, or like, I actually, this is a question because I don't know the answer. I don't know why they would be against.
You know, I don't really understand. And I come from a very traditional Christian, like hardcore Christian. I grew up that way in Texas. And from what I know, and actually my background, I'm Salvadorian, and they're advanced in many other ways, but except for the transgender issue and kind of like the homosexuality and all that, they're very, very, they're like 50 years behind. You know, they don't really tolerate it as much. So I have that double thing going on in my family. But from what I've seen and my experience, it's all just misunderstanding and misinformation. You know, it's like maybe they don't know anybody who is like that, or they've never given anybody a chance. But like, for example, my parents, they don't really support it much. But talking to them and getting to them on a deep level, and them being around me and stuff, I think has softened them up as far as like my family also. So I think it's just like traditions. It's kind of like the way racism works in America, where it comes down from generation to generation until you meet someone of a different race and you're like, well, that's not even true. They're just regular people, you know?
Yeah.
Another thing, it's like politics as well, especially in the United States. You know, the right is like, let's keep traditional conservative values, and that excludes all these people. And so it's just kind of like hype. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah. I think that she brings up a good point. I think it's just because it goes against the narrative. It goes against the Christian narrative. It goes against what God supposedly said in the Bible and stuff. So.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, that's the answer. Like God said, okay, that's stupid.
Yeah, like God
Totally.
says, or like control, because I've always wondered, like, why are you worried about who I'm sleeping with? That is the creepiest thing in the world to me.
Or what you're
Like,
wearing, even.
Like, why are you worried about who I'm going home with? That's such a creepy thing, It's like, I don't care who you're married to, and why does my marriage affect yours? I don't get it.
100%. You talked about gender dysphoria. Can you talk about it? Just explain it to us and how it affected you.
Well, gender dysphoria, actually, it started, I've always had it, really, because I've always been kind of like, just very afraid to be like, especially when I was a kid, when they would separate the boys and the girls, I'd be like, oh my God, this is like my nightmare. Because it was so scary going with the boys. Like, it was just so scary. So then there was that, and I wanted to do more of like what the girls were doing, or like, seeing my sister like buy her clothes and stuff. So it was just in there, because it's like I feel like I missed out on all that. But then it turned into like, you wake up and you look at yourself in the mirror, and you don't see the person that you see in your head, and there are things about your body that kind of remind you of that you're not like that. And so it's very like hard to deal with, because it's like constantly you're thinking about it. It could be your voice or your hands or anything like that. And it's just a lot of people end their lives because of that, because they don't have they're not able to manage it, so that's how it affected me. It's like, as the older I got, the more my body started changing, the worse it got, because I was like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to look like this. I don't feel like I'm supposed to dress like this. I don't feel like I should be treated like this,
Do you remember a first moment, or it sounded like you were very young when you started having these ideas. It sounds like maybe it was forever. Do you remember a specific moment where you're like, oh, this is something that's different about me, perhaps?
Actually, I won't say it all started, but I guess the journey, the courage to do it started because I saw like transgender people. And when I moved to California, I saw transgender people, and I saw that they could have normal lives, and they could have jobs, and they could own businesses, and they could be on TV, and they could be regular human beings, living in Texas, I never got that opportunity to see that. I don't remember seeing anyone transgender around me. Maybe on TV, but probably I didn't even notice. So I didn't think that was a possible thing, but just seeing that kind of started the journey for me. It just encouraged me to kind of explore my gender identity, because I did come out as like gay at first, but didn't feel right. It just didn't, I felt like it was like more,
When did you, if you don't mind talking about when you told your family and what the reaction was, and kind of how if it's evolved over the years?
Well, I took a trip to Texas, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to show up the way I am now.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Did you go with anyone or just by yourself?
I did. I went with my friend Teddy, and we were he was on a road trip or not a road trip, but he was going to go there, and he was going to drive, and he's like, you're from Dallas, you want to come with me? And I was like, all right, it's time to do this. So literally I got in the car, and maybe 5 hours before we got to Dallas, I called my dad and I told him. My mom kind of knew already, because I had started like a new Facebook with my new name and everything. So, people were like gossiping, telling her things about me and stuff. But the first time they saw me was when they knew. And I told them, I was like, this is who I am. And I got a really, like, from my dad, I got a really surprisingly positive reaction from him. He was just like, I don't understand why you have to do this, but if you feel like you have to, I don't want you to have any regrets in life. And that's what he said. My mom, it's taken her a little bit longer to kind of accept, but I think we're getting there.
See, this is unusual, because I've been talking about this on the podcast for a while now, how in the media and in TV and movies, it's always the father who has a hard time and everything. But when you talk to people, I think it's like 66 or 75% the mother who has a hard time with it. And it's did you think that would happen, or did you know it would go the way it did?
Not at all. Like I was like, literally, I was as crazy as this sounds. I was considering like hiding myself from him like forever. I was like, I'll just wear like a big jacket and I'll take off my makeup and I'll just be like, and because I was so terrified that my dad would have such a bad reaction. And it was either like choosing me, my life, or like losing him completely, and my dad has been like sick and stuff. So I was like, I don't think there's a point. But my friend convinced me, and he was like, you need to tell your dad, he's your dad. He's gonna love you no matter what. And thanks to him, I had the courage to do it.
That's great. You're lucky that he does love you no matter what, because that doesn't always happen. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's funny because this came up recently. I was talking to someone else, and I don't think that straight people understand the levels of hatred and fear that the LGBT community, we learn like at 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 years old. And like you even said, like you're a grown woman and you're like, oh God, maybe I don't want to see my father because it's so ingrained. That's really wonderful. And how do you feel now?
With my family?
Yeah, with the family and everything.
No, I feel better, a lot better. I maybe done 3 trips over there. And
oh, wow.
yeah, and now they're slowly calling me by my name, like my siblings do. But the parents will always have, hard, and I understand, they've known me for one way their whole lives. So it's getting a lot better. We have some type of relationship now. But that's why I'm thinking, I think that a lot of this is just a lot of hype that people have heard. And when they realize that you're just like a normal human being, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, totally.
How has it been going to Texas, which is, I don't know what part of Texas you're from, but it's a notoriously very conservative state.
So I've been to Texas 3 times since my transition. And you know what? The first time I was terrified because I drove there. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the scariest thing, especially like stopping to use the restroom. So scary. But you know what? Surprisingly, everybody has been so friendly in Texas. I've not had like a weird encounter or anything like that. And people don't even look at me, really. Everyone's just kind of like in their own thing, And I'm from Dallas, so it is a little bit more of a bigger city, But even driving through Texas, I think maybe one there was these girls that were like staring at me, but I don't know if they were staring at me because of that or if they were just looking somewhere. You know what I mean? It's just my own head.
Yeah, they could have been like, "Ooh, her top is so cute. I hate her."
It could have been. I don't know.
Talk about the bathroom. It was. Talk about the bathrooms for a minute. What's the bathroom situation and how have you dealt with it? And have you had any problems?
No, I haven't had any problems, thank God. No, but I've heard stories like from people that I know that have had problems in the bathrooms, and even like in Malibu, like in California. Yeah. But I know that in most of the country, as long as your ID says like F or whatever, you can use the bathroom. So I'm consciously aware of that. So I'm like, okay, I have it just in case if I need to get ID to go to the restroom or whatever. But thankfully, I haven't had any problems. And you know what really helps? And if anyone's out there and you're nervous to use the restrooms, go to Starbucks because they have the all gender bathrooms, and it feels very safe.
I feel like that's how all bathrooms should be at this point. We should just have all gender stalls and then a common like washing hands area or whatever.
This is a genuine question. What is the argument against having that?
I think they're worried about like sexual crimes, like raping or things like that.
Yeah,
that's what they say.
Is it a legitimate concern? Is that stuff really happening?
According to the statistics, sorry, I don't think so. I think that there have been more crimes committed by people in the bathroom against said trans person in there than the opposite. But the thing is that they don't believe that, like, for example, a transgender woman is a woman. So to them, the argument is like, I don't want any man, get naked in front of my 12-year-old daughter, things like that.
Right.
Which, there's, it can be a concern, but it's not, the statistics don't show that.
Well, that would be more like a locker room situation than a restroom, because restrooms usually have a stall.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Have you been in any? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, in the locker room? Have I? Yeah, I have actually. Yes, I did. Yeah.
But even locker rooms have stalls too, or shower curtains. So there's I don't know. I feel like there's lots of different ways to conceal yourself if you want to.
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't had any problems, thankfully. Or I just walk in there, it's like nothing.
Okay, I just have two things to say about the bathroom situation. I don't want to be in the bathroom with almost 100% of the men I've been in the bathrooms with myself. So I want my own bathroom anyways. And number two is we all have to take a minute to realize she has to think about having her ID on her before she goes to the bathroom. Let's think about that for a minute. Most of us just walk in the bathroom, don't think anything of it. Think about having to worry about going to the bathroom and make sure you have your ID on you.
Yeah. I mean, who's really going to be there looking at your ID though? Is there bathroom?
No, I know, but I think it goes beyond that. Don't you think, if it was me, I would think about, am I going to get arrested? Am I going to have people screaming at me? What's going to happen? Please get out of here. Let's go from there. This is a really good segue to, I want to talk about TERFs.
No, TERFs.
Do you guys know what TERFs are, Aaron and Nathan?
Can I just interject for a second? If I get up and leave the frame, it's not because I'm disinterested. We have a child that's squirming and she might need my attention. So
it's actually because she's a TERF.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to apologize for all people who don't know what a TERF is.
Do you want us to tell us what a TERF is, Gabriella? And yeah, go ahead.
It's a trans exclusionary radical feminist.
And have you had any experience? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
TER.
Exclusionary.
Okay.
Radical feminist.
There's an offshoot of feminists that have that were normally, as I understand it, liberal, but they're kind of sort of siding with conservatives against the trans community.
They're not women enough.
Yeah, they're they're not women. No, they're saying they're not women and they're part of the problem. That's what they're saying.
Biologically.
They're not women. They're part of the problem, and they're part of why we're getting oppressed. But Gabriella, can you tell us your encounters or your? Go ahead. Tell us about TERFs.
Sure.
Go run. Go.
So I think their argument is because of trans women or men becoming women, they're erasing a lot of women's spaces or female born spaces. So a lot of their arguments are in sports, for example. So they think that if a trans woman competes in sports, then the space that it was just created for women would be erased. So they believe we're here to erase women or replace them or something. I haven't had much experience with them, thankfully, because I try to stay away from that because that just seems very complicated to me. And it's I have enough to worry about that stuff. But the way that, in my opinion, it's I understand what they're saying, for example, but I think it should apply more to, okay, well, I'm just going to use her as an example. There are some people that were born with privilege, for example, Caitlyn Jenner. She's born with privilege and all that. And then all of a sudden she's a millionaire. And then all of a sudden she transitions. And now she gets all the privileges of a woman. I understand that, but then there's minorities and people that are not millionaires that don't get any privileges at all. And so I don't think that they're there to replace women. They're just there to exist,
Yeah.
I think, you made a really good point that it's so nuanced and complicated. The first thing you said was about sex and gender, I think really points to how complicated this is for people to kind of grasp or to really hold. It's because the definition or the explanation you gave of sex and gender was more, it wasn't what I was expecting to hear from you actually, because I think a lot of people, like you said, kind of merge those ideas together a lot. And then later when we were talking about bathrooms and you were talking about being a woman, then that sounds like sex, but you're talking about gender. So I think it does get really complicated. And I think it's hard for people to navigate through their own conceptions of what is being said with certain vocabulary words in the moment. So I just wanted to put a pin on how complicated it is. And that
And I was when I'm referring to the bathrooms, I'm referring to my gender because as far as me personally being a feminine person and looking like a feminine person, going into a men's restroom would be more dangerous for me than going into like a woman's restroom.
Totally.
One question I
never thought about that. Wow.
Along this line is so now it just slipped out of my head, but I'll come back to it. If it comes back, I'll come back to it.
I have a question about the argument I've heard against, like, for example, biological men who've transitioned competing in women's sports is that there's like a physiological muscular difference that is unfair. I'm just curious what you think of that side of the argument of that debate.
I understand that because male bodies are born differently than female bodies, like bone density, for example, or like, muscle development and stuff. But a lot of it has to do with like how long the person has been on hormones. So if they've had like the hormone replacement therapy since a child, then the advantages are going to be very small. And I believe that the differences will be very, like, when you're like an Olympic athlete, when everything matters, like a fraction of a second, maybe you'll see the advantages there. But when it comes to like kids just playing soccer out in the field and schools, it's like, let them play.
Yeah.
Let them play.
That's the argument that I heard recently, which I thought was very compelling, is the vast majority of situations are kids who are just looking for the bonding activity of being in a sport with other kids. And it's not about that elite level. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we can deal with those two situations differently in the long term. But I do remember what I was going to say. Your description of gender versus sex, is that the general consensus, do you think, at this point in the trans community?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So there are two terms: AFAB, AFAB, AMAB, AMAB, and that means assigned female at birth or assigned male at birth. So you can call me, I'm an AMAB person because I was assigned male at birth, but I identify as a woman, so I'm a transgender woman. So it's kind of like, that's how everyone talks about it in those terms. And the reason why I don't know about we, but the community, the way they define it is because there's a lot of like genders, and then now it's kind of like the rise of like people that are non-binary, like the people that feel like they're somewhere in between or both or fluid. So it just makes it easier to define what we're talking about or how people talk about it.
I think, and I should probably apologize for taking up so much space right now as a white male, straight white male, but I feel like a lot of attention is given to people or individuals who stress that sex is completely socially constructed, and it sounds like that's not what you're saying.
No, gender is a social construct, though, because if I walk down the street, you're going to see me and treat me like a woman and talk to me like a woman. So in American society, I am a woman, However, I was born male, so the sex part you can't change unless you're, come back in another body. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the I get resistance on the other side that I see is a confusion between that issue in particular. And then
Yeah, and
there were, yeah, go ahead. You know what I'm saying.
yeah, no, and a lot of people use the argument like, well, if I'm 50 years old and I want to identify like a 12-year-old, then I'm gonna do it. But it's not the same thing. You can't change your age, but you can dress younger if you want. You can act like a 12-year-old if you want. So that's kind of like the difference. You can't change your age, but you can be younger or, have the energy about you.
There's something I read recently, and I have very little details or information, so forgive me, but the basis was that there's some Native American communities that have like 50 plus genders and different words for all these different genders. So the fact that there's only 2 genders in the American society that are like legitimate is just kind of a out of date concept that we've created.
Yeah, they had it was, I heard you guys talking about like the different cultures around the world had like a place for people that felt like they were different. One that I was researching recently are the Mujes in Mexico, and I think they're in Oaxaca. But they are part of society, and there's hardly, they've been accepted, and it's a native tradition, and it comes back from like thousands of years, or the hijras in India as well, and I forgot what they're called, but the ones in Polynesia too. I think
Fiji,
yeah, but there's a lot of like native, especially like a lot of native or indigenous cultures around the world that have a space for like different genders and things. I think it's because the Christianity or the Abrahamic religions, there's a lot of duality. There's like light and dark. There's male, female. There's this and that.
That's so interesting how much our society has been affected by those religions.
Yeah, and I'm sick of it.
I'm
done.
Like we don't even really know how much this the norm is. Just it all comes back to that.
No, totally.
Yeah, it's all propaganda.
All right.
Down the stairs and gave us a toy mouse. Thank you.
I want to hit you with some pop culture references, and I want to see how you feel about them. I think we talked about this once, but the terms, the terminologies, and what we can and can't say. Like on RuPaul's Drag Race, she used to introduce a segment on her show, and it used to come in saying, "Ooh, girl, you got she-male." How do you feel about that? And they took it away because transgender people said we don't like it, so they took it out. So what do you think about things like that?
That word is so gross. I'm sorry. It's just well, when I hear it, the reason is because a lot of like it's a word that people use to fetishize you,
Oh, okay.
So it's like a she-male or whatever, or like a tranny. It's like it comes from porn, so it's like just fetishizing you. And so when you're using that like all nonchalantly and like to describe a person, and it's like, but it doesn't matter, they're trannies, it's like, yeah, but people die because of this fetishism, and there's a lot of like sex trade and like slaves, and so it's kind of like, I don't know, that one's kind of weird.
I agree. Yeah, it's the words. People don't realize that there'd be a word that's said, and then you're either going to get beat up or killed after that word is said.
Jeez.
So
Exactly,
so it kind of like, so you kind of like, and we need to find a word for straight people that we say, and then they're going to be afraid that they're going to get beat up or killed, so they know what we're talking about.
I think it's straight white male.
No, why don't we just come up with it right now?
Straight.
All right. Sturdy, filthy, straighty. Okay, J.K. Rowling. She's been. There have been different transgender groups that have come out against her. They said that she sent tweets that were very transphobic. I couldn't find them. All I found is a lot of articles saying that she sent these transphobic tweets, but I couldn't find the actual tweets. Do you know anything about it, and how do you feel about it?
I think she's liked the tweets or favorite them, because everyone can see that. And I think she's retweeted some of the stuff, and maybe she's taken it down. Frankly, it's kind of disappointing to me, because it's like you're someone that promotes magic, someone that promotes like witchcraft, and someone that promotes like being completely unique, you know? And it just sounds very like, it just surprises me, honestly. It surprises me because I'm like, you have like hybrid people in your books, but then like, you
Yeah.
know,
What did she tweet? What were the offensive words that she said?
I think that it was, I'm not really sure, but I think what it was from what I've read, it's, and maybe Nathan, if you guys know about this, maybe, yeah. I know that she liked like people that are TERFs and they're known to be TERFs and they're very vocal about it. So she's like low key supporting it without being forward with it.
Yeah, I think this. I think it really gets to the idea of what I was bringing up and talking to you about, and I appreciate how you described all of that stuff with gender versus sex. And I think when you get on these platforms and you start, I think everything gets reduced. There's no nuance, and everything gets reduced. So I think you're right. I think she was retweeting or liking people who were like, women are women, and that's it, and that eliminates all the nuance of gender. But what's interesting is the way you described it, I think indicates that, what did you say? Assigned female at birth exists as a thing. So I think there is that meeting ground that is being overlooked because of outrage or politics or, passing each other in the night kind of thing. I think with Rowling as well, there was, she was sexually assaulted. So there's very lived trauma with being trapped by someone of the opposite sex and not being able to defend yourself. And so I think that's part of what's happening is she sees the bathroom issue or I forget there was some legislation that was being passed that she was objecting to in particular, that she felt like even if it gave that little room for predatory men to enter female spaces and violate innocent people, that was a travesty to her. So I don't know. It's very complicated. It's very high. It was all over the news and people were trying to cancel her, but like Harry Potter's so big, you can't cancel her.
Well, but I will say that almost everybody in the Harry Potter universe came out against her. So yeah, that's true. I don't know what to say to her. And it is encouraging that the TERFs are not getting a lot of traction outside of the weird Republican-y or like outside of radical areas. They're not getting a lot of traction, so it's not going to happen. We have a wonderful comment from CB Actor Traveler saying, Gabriella, you are so admirable, smart, and inspiring. I would like to know the best thing and the hardest thing about transitioning. Is there a lot of physical pain? And God damn it, CB Actor Traveler stole our ending question that we always ask our guests. But thank you, CB Actor Traveler. So go ahead and answer those, Gabriella.
Well, the best thing about this definitely is that I feel like myself, like looking in the mirror, I see who I want to see and it just feels good. I feel like I can move on with my life, As far as the hardest thing is like, boy, the hardest thing is like facing yourself. Because if you think about it, I'm wearing my deepest, darkest secret on my skin. Like I feel like I'm walking inside out. So kind of like overcoming that and being able to humble yourself and kind of just accept the fact of what you are and who you are and not be ashamed about it and just live your life and be proud about it is a lot of mental work that you have to do. A lot of emotional pain comes with that. Also physical pain too. There's so many, your body goes through changes and like if you decide to do the hormone route, like the HRT, like that was kind of painful too, with the mood swings and all that. So it's good things.
My question to follow up to that is, what advice would you give someone who is facing that challenge of facing their inner dark fears and so forth?
I think that one of the most important parts of my transition that made it easier for me was like having people that supported me and having people that treated me like a normal person, you know, it wasn't like a thing or something that I was doing. They just treated me like a human being. And I think it's very important that if you are struggling with your gender identity or like you don't know what to do some research on it. There's a lot of research on YouTube. There's a lot of bloggers that will literally tell you like day by day, like first day on hormones, this is what happened. 30 days on hormones, this is what happened. And watching all those helped me so much. But the most important thing is like find people that'll let you be yourself with them.
That's awesome. That should be a slogan. There's a slogan, really cool something there somewhere. We're going to figure it out. We're going to market it and make money off it.
Yeah.
Let you be yourself with them.
I want to get into, oh, sorry, go ahead. I want to get into your acting because you're an actress and we want to know what that's like now. But before we do, we need to ask a question about Caitlyn Jenner. Because there's not a lot of people that seem to relate to Caitlyn Jenner, and she's not well received in the transgender community, I think. What do you think?
She's a Republican. I just want to throw that out there.
Oh, and she's donated a lot of money to Republicans who are anti-LGBT. So, but go ahead.
I think the language she uses, like I remember this is like some, I don't know, post she made, and when the bathroom issue was becoming a big deal, and this is like early on in her transition, but she was like, "Can I use the little girls' room? Is that okay with y'all?" And they were like, "Yeah, go ahead, you know, whatever." But then when it comes to kids playing soccer in school, she was calling them little boys, and I was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You just called yourself a boy. Like, what are you doing?"
She's in a bubble. She doesn't realize she's one of those white people. Because I don't know, you guys probably don't know because you guys weren't conscious in 1976. But Bruce Jenner became Mr. America. Like for 4 years after 1976, like he was the representation of America. He was huge. And so I don't think that he realizes he's in this bubble of being treated differently than everybody else. Like he's not, like he has so many privileges that it would never get through to his brain. Brittany Nicole Timmons, the most wonderful actress that ever lived, says Caitlyn should be canceled, and she's my guru when it comes to canceling. So.
All right.
All right.
I'll say cancel her. Cancel.
Caitlyn Jenner is canceled.
Gone.
Okay, now we want to get to acting. So you were acting before the transitioning and after the transitioning. Has there been a difference? Tell us about it. What's it like? Go.
So definitely have gotten a lot more jobs since after my transition, which Brittany says she's joking. Now, Brittany, it's too late. You already
you're a queen for following you.
Started a movement. So I guess where was I going? Oh yeah. So I've gotten more like jobs and I guess more attention after my transition. And I think it's because the world is kind of like opening up to that. So they're trying to put more of us on TV and other places. But it's been good for me. The only thing though is that there's a theme. I play like prostitutes all the time. Like that's it. It's like prostitutes almost all the time.
Oh my God.
That actually surprises me that that's still the case.
I know that's so 70s, but you're fine with it, right?
I mean, if I have to be the token trans person to get out there, you know, sometimes you have to do it. But yeah, it thankfully though, I will say after the pandemic or like during the pandemic, I did do a couple of auditions that were different. Mm-hmm. And one of them was actually like a church lady. So I was like, oh, this is cool. Yeah. So it is changing, I think. But a lot of the stuff that I've done is like sex workers and things like that.
Oh my God, so ridiculous. But that's incredible that your career picked up after. That's because it is a moment now. It's a trans moment right now for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like shows like Transparent and Pose and all that, they help a lot because I feel like where it's moving, and hopefully it is moving that way, you don't cast a trans person to play like a transgender role. You know what I mean by that? Like it's not about
Yeah.
them being transgender. It's like that's just who they are, but they get to play a character. And I hope I can help make that happen to where it's like the story can be about me, but it's not about my transition. It's about me as like a person. That's just like a thing that happened. It's my experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like deeper characters would be cool.
Which is where we want to go. That's why I opened it up saying that we hope to just talk about people without describing their attributes, that just who they are.
Yeah, that's
100%.
so true. It just reflects something I was thinking. Like at some point, you are probably going to be tired of like answering everyone's questions about this and educating people, right? Like at some point, we want to be at a place where that isn't even a thing, right? Or we're just like,
yeah, and you know, it to me, I actually enjoy doing it because I like talking to people, and I feel like I'm doing my part by educating people because I know that there's a lot of just like misinformation out there. You know, a lot of the hatred that comes from this are misunderstandings that just become fears. But yeah, it does become tiresome. And when I came out as gay, the first time, because I came out twice, the first time I came out, I was like taking the time to explain it to people. I was like, look, this is how I feel and all this and I'm sorry. And then when I came out as trans, I just made a video on Facebook and I was like, here, watch it or don't watch it. I don't care. I'm just gonna live my life. You just have to, I just kind of like see, I'm like, are you really curious about this or are you just trying to make me feel bad, you know? Because there's some people that will do that. They'll ask you questions to try to like argue with you. It's like, I'm not going to argue my existence.
Yeah, what are they going to argue? What are they arguing?
Exactly.
I just don't understand. That's the thing is like, get a grip. Like if you think about it for 2 seconds, if you think like, I am opposed to this person that I don't know because of that thing that they are, and it's like, oh, I don't have time for that. Like I would never have time for that. I got stuff to do. Like, are they nice or are they not nice? That's what I care about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're actually approaching the end of our time. Gabriella, can you let our audience know where they can find all the things that you want them to find?
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram, Gabriella_Rafiele. And you can also email me there if you'd like. And then my store, because I do own a store in Woodland Hills. So if you're into crystals and you like meditation, and I will say meditation is the reason why I am not insane, I guess, right now. It's the thing that's kept me like, especially during my transition. It was the way that I could manage my dysphoria. So this is the reason why I became very passionate about that kind of stuff, like internally healing yourself, because if it wasn't for that, I don't know where I would be. So if anyone is interested in looking that up, it's called Starlight Intuitive. You can look it up on Instagram also, Starlight_Intuitive.
And it's also just starlightintuitive.com too.
Yes, the website. Yes, thank you.
Bam. I don't even know where Woodland Hills is, so I would have to Google that even.
It's in the valley.
You know, David.
Hooligan Mama says, Gabriella, you rock. Thank you for sharing your truth. Bless your beautiful soul.
No, thank you. Thank you for watching.
Sweet.
Yeah, no, seriously, thank you so much for coming on. It was just such a pleasure. It was so great to hear your story. Happy Pride to you and to everyone listening.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, and don't forget us when you become a star. You're going to come back and do the show again. You better.
Yes.
Watch your trailer for your film.
Oh, yeah. What's your film and where can they see the trailer? Because it's scary. Go ahead.
It is very scary. So I was one of 3 writers that worked on this film. So I did most of the dialogue. So if you don't like the dialogue, don't tell me about it. But you can look it up. It's called From Dark Eyes to Winter's Eternity. You can look it up on Vimeo or YouTube. And it's going to come out sometime later in the year. We don't know because of COVID messed everything up. So it was supposed to come out in 2020. So now we're just kind of like seeing it. But in the meantime, you can watch the teaser. And trigger warning, it does deal with a lot of pedophilia and things like that. So if that triggers you, please be careful.
Okay, are you gonna have an opening somewhere, a grand opening of the movie here?
We did have it like planned and
Oh.
stuff for last year, so I think we're gonna do it sometime in the fall.
You better invite me and Brittany and CB Actor Traveler and Nathan and Aaron. They're not in LA, but you better invite us.
I want the invite, even if
I want the invite.
Yes, they want to be invited.
And you have an invite to come back on our show sometime in the future. Perhaps we can dive into the meditation stuff.
100. Because it's such a big subject. I didn't even get to a whole bunch of stuff I wanted to talk about. So we got more shit to talk about.
Let's plan a part 2 then. Coming up.
All right.
When your film comes out or something.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, yes. Let us know when your film comes out. We're going to do it.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. I'd be honored.
Wow.
We just had another compliments.
I know. We just had someone say an amazing guest. Congrats, Unimaginary Friends.
Hey, we didn't
Thank you so much.
We didn't do anything. We just had a great guest. Anyway.
Hey, that's a talent.
All right, everyone.
Thank you so much, Gabriella Rafiele.
Everyone for listening and for commenting. And please check out our Instagram and Facebook at Unimaginary Friend to see when we're live streaming next.
Okay, thank you guys.
Okay. Well, we're not allowed to end the podcast until a certain word is said. And I want you to say it, Gabriella. It's a word that begins with a B, and it needs to be part of a quote. And you get sassy.
Yes,
do you know what I'm saying at all?
No.
Oh, all right, that was pretty good. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Gabriella.
Thank you, guys.